What do you mean is Microsoft Flight Simulator a simulator or a game? You idiot. Look, bear with me, guys. By the end of this video, you will be confused, and I will be confused, but it'll be fun, and we'll have a better understanding of semantics. So fasten your seatbelts. Let's get going. Welcome back to Game Muscle YouTube channel. Click that like button and subscribe. Welcome back to Microsoft Flight Simulator, and welcome to the icon over the northeast of England. Oh, aye, man. Newcastle behind us, North and South Shields in front of us. An area of the UK I know quite well. So, let's get straight into the meat and potatoes of this video. Now, obviously Microsoft Flight Simulator, by its name, it's been designed as a simulator. It's been sold and marketed as a simulator. The developer is trying to make as realistic as possible, silicone calculated, pinnacle of contemporary modern art, recreation of flying. It's a simulator, okay, in that regard. But this is where I think it's not a simulator, in the sense that if you're not playing this to actually train to fly a real-world aircraft, you know, to actually do a direct thing that you would literally do in real life or potentially do in real life, then really, from your perspective, it's not actually a simulator. You are playing it as a game in that regard. And I would say 99.9% of the people that do buy and use Microsoft Flight Simulator will be playing it as a game rather than a simulator. And well, also there'll be pro flight simmers out there that will be like, oh, it's not study level, so it's not study level, so not a real simulator. But you know, if you're approaching it not to actually do the real world thing or to learn the systems and stuff and then actually fly like real life, it is a game. You're playing it as a game. And what makes it even more gamey is that despite the physics being fantastic, weather being fantastic, photo terrain and everything, and a lot of it being very accurate to real life, the fact of the matter is there's no real rules in it, built into it, that actually stop you from being able to do things that in real life, if you did them, you know, you would lose your pilot's license. Or, so for example, right now I'm just descending over South Shields, the last stop on the Mitral, and well, I've not radioed in to let anyone know. I've not done any of the correct air traffic procedures here, and now I'm flying very dangerously low. Well, soon will be, and very recklessly, and yet absolutely nothing. There's Lidl down there, by the way, on the left. There's absolutely nothing will come of doing this in the game or the simulator. Like, nothing's happening now. No jets are being dispatched. Nothing. Nobody's screaming at me over the air traffic control. Nothing. That's not in real life. This would be. Now I'm destined for jail time, pretty much. I mean, I could just claim I'm having some kind of mental breakdown. They might let me get away with it, you know. But you see what I'm saying in terms of actual gameplay, enforcement of what would stop you from actually doing stuff to keep it being super realistic. That's not there. Also, I mean, it will like black out if you crash into the ground, and if you overspeed and fly right out the envelope of the aircraft, it will black out, and it's effectively you've died. But the point I'm making is, it's kind of you have to fly it yourself in a realistic fashion to make it work as a simulator. You kind of have to role play to get it to be an actual simulator as opposed to it being a game. So despite Microsoft doing an amazing job on what they've done in terms of the physics, everything, all the stuff I've said, at the end of the day, if you want it to be a simulator, you have to actually approach it in a role-playing fashion. You have to create the simulation aspect of it. So you know, it's where you draw the line between game and simulator. I mean, if you're just loading this up, jumping in, flying around, looking out the window, enjoying the view, and messing around with the physics, well, then what are you actually simulating? do you know what I mean? It's like, well, it's closer to simulate a remote control plane flight than it is a real flight, and I'd say it is more gaming than it is simulatoring. So, you know, there needs to be the definition between sim and game. I think from a utilitarian perspective, obviously, just calling something a simulator, the cutoff is on the it's on the development side of things. So it's like, if a developer builds a game or a sim, if they built it with expectation it's to be used as a simulator, then you can call it a simulator. And then if you were to then evaluate that thing, you evaluate, if it's approached as a simulator, how good of a sim is it? So that's, you know, that's probably where the for the utility of the word simulator. But I just think it's interesting, because it's like with the racing simulators and driving simulators, the vast majority of people playing driving simulators are not actually playing them as a driving simulator. If you're even if you're racing online, you don't actually approach it as you would approach real-world driving. And even ironically, for racing simulators, the better you get at it, and the more close, like if you're doing esports and you're getting at the very top echelons of esporting, the less realistic the driving becomes. Like, it's more about very specific repetition in, like, the conditions are basically always the same in a racing simulator. It's about exploiting the specific racing simulator's physics, not the physics as they would be exploited in real life, because, you know, there's a limit to how detailed driving simulators would be, and they all have their own way to exploit to be the best in the world at them. So, you know, even with a driving simulator, the more realistically you actually try to play it in a competitive sense, the less realistic it actually is as a simulator. It's mind-blowing, guys. I feel like I'm not helping anyone with this conversation. All I've done is made myself and probably everyone else more confused. You know, oh, look at South Shields, guys. I've got proper memories of South Shields. It's a weird place, absolutely fantastic beaches, and then you've got North Shields on the other side here. But I'm going to fly towards Newcastle whilst we're in this. I just want an excuse to, like, talk about rubbish whilst flying over North and South Shields. The Bing Map data, has it? Yeah, it's like, some of the areas on Bing Maps are a little bit out of date. It seems to me that some of the Bing Map data is like, give or take, between sort of 5 and 9 years out of date. Some places it's bang on brand new, but in the UK it seems to be like 5 to 9 years out of date. So you'll notice areas where they built housing, where they now in reality they built housing, but in the sim there aren't any houses. But let's fly towards Newcastle here. So, I mean, I don't know what you guys think in the chat room over this stupid stupid conversation and clickbait video title. I mean, do you guys think that if a developer has built it as a simulator, then that's fine? It's like, it's more of a categorical thing of, like, you know, everyone knows what a simulator is. Microsoft Flight Simulators, by the common usage of the word, is a simulator. That's fine. Do you think that I don't think it works as a descriptor, obviously. But then, okay, so then when it comes to, like, analysing it from a review sense, it's like, as if most people are then playing it as a game, then it's like, well, what about missions in it? It does have missions in it. Should it not have more missions in it? Does that make it more of a game? Guys, I don't know. I don't know what to think anymore. How do words work? I guess, you know, it's one of those things where you'd have to define, before starting the conversation, you'd have to define what you mean by simulator. And, well, as I say, what also throws a spanner in the work is that, yeah, if a plane isn't study level, then, well, arguably, you know, you wouldn't be recommended to actually use it as a proper, legit simulator for many aspects of real-world flying. A lot of real-world pilots and real-world pilot training, I've heard from real pilots, they say don't use flight simulators to learn the flight dynamics of aircraft, or practice too much on a flight simulator, because you'll get really good at flight simulators. You'll learn how to fly a flight simulator, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're learning how to fly a real plane. And even with stuff like X-Plane 11, a lot of the focus on simulators is more about using a simulator to reinforce procedure, and you basically do what you would do in the real plane, and just concentrate on getting those procedures ingrained, so you don't have to think about them when you actually get into the real plane. And then when you're in the real plane, you can then focus on the other components that real life actually does better. Also stuff like dials and screens and things have been done pretty much perfectly for like over 15 years now, with a correctly done plane in Prepare 3D, Flight Sim X, X-Plane 11. But outside of that, it's a game. Oh dear. You know, I think it's a nice topic, because you know, it upsets anything that upsets flight simmers, super anal flight simmers, anything that gets them to cry, and anything that gets just riles up argument is good for the internet. Hit the dislike button. How much further is it to? We're getting there. The River Tyne is actually quite long. So on the left here, you've got the Mitterall. You can actually just see it there. So South Sea, I can't remember, like Jarrow, I think is on the left here. I'm totally out. It's been a long time since I've been in the northeast of England. You actually have an underground, a footway crossing underneath the River Tyne. I think we've already flown over. Hang on a minute. Here we are. It's the city centre already. Beasted it. There you go. I was half asleep there. So unfortunately, they haven't modelled the Opera House. You know, unfortunately, this is using. It's not one of the photogrammetry areas. But there's Gateshead to our left, and on the right is actually Newcastle city centre. You've got all the bridges in Newcastle. I mean, it's pretty decent. Newcastle train station should be in front of us. There's one of the bridges there, the famous blue, one of the famous blue bridges there, one of the rail bridges, sunken in the water. I'd say actually that's one of the things in Microsoft Flight Simulator that that sticks out, is that bridges in some locations go into the water. I think that's the one thing that would be a big improvement that's currently lacking. But outside of that, it's just a bloody fantastic. There you go. There's Newcastle train station. Just down here. What a flight! But guys, what a ridiculous video. I just think it's interesting. What do you guys think? Do you think there's merit in this, in the debate on what's a sim and what's not a sim? And my point that if you're not playing it as a simulator, is it then just a game? Like, the approach of it seems to me to be more important than the actual intention of what the piece of software is, unless the developers built in all the rules to force you to categorically have to play it as a sim. And I think one of the problems I have with taking a flight simulator deadly serious, like, oh, let's do a full cold startup every single time, let's do all the procedure every time, unless I was training to fly the plane in real life, I have a problem bothering to do that in a flight sim, because it's like, well, there's no rules in the sim inherently to force me to do that and evaluate my skill of doing that. So it's like, well, why bother doing it? Because I tend to approach these sims as a game more than a simulator. But yes, well, it'll be interesting to see what the comments are. Just throw some tea bags at me, guys. You can let me know if you want more of these meandering, completely nonsensical videos in the future. Bloody hell. Normally, when you approach these topics, you hope that the YouTuber has had a well-rounded, thought-out, clear, concise view on it, but clearly I don't. Let's land on the Tyne. I really like this icon. It's a ridiculous plane car. It is a plane. but it flies like a car, which was the intention. Here we go. It actually, a nice thing with this icon is apparently you shouldn't be able to stall it. Like, it stalls in a totally controllable way. It doesn't flip over when it stalls. So let's try that. Look at that. Just like the real life one. And it actually stalls at a speed that that you could survive as well. So, you know, they've captured the real life icon aircraft. Now we can deploy the landing gear. Okay, beached it. Oh, guys, yes. Let me know what you think. Well, I'm going to flesh out the thought of this in my head more, and then I'm going to do a driving sim video on the same topic when it's all decided. I'll read through your comments, and you can help me. You can help me round out the view of this sim game debate. But yeah, thank you for watching this, and I will see you in the next video, which I promise will be more concise and less brain melting. But until then, thanks for watching, and goodbye.